Metroid Prime 4 finally has a release date of December 4th, 2025. The last numbered Metroid Prime game came out over 18 years ago, and I thought it'd be a great time to make a lore recap of the Prime series, specifically in case people forgot what happened, can't play the other games in the series, or they just simply don't want to. This video is going to be a lore overview to give you some extra context in case some things come up in Prime 4. Admittedly, a lot of the Prime lore is episodic, so maybe they won't give any relevant information. However, there's already a villain that's coming back from earlier in the series, so I figure why not. There's some cool stuff in the Metroid universe worth talking about anyway. I'll only talk about relevant upgrades and only bosses that tie in with the story, just in case you want to play through these games. I do think they're pretty good, and I don't want to spoil everything if you decide to play the games. The Metroid series, in terms of its timeline, is basically split up into two different eras, the Prime era and what I call Metroid proper. The classic Metroid for the NES, or Metroid Zero Mission as the remake is called, is Samus's first mission as a bounty hunter. Afterwards comes the Prime series itself, with Metroid Prime 1 through 3 as a trilogy, and two additional spin-off games along with them, Metroid Prime Hunters and Metroid Prime Federation Force. After the Prime era is done, then it moves into Metroid 2, Super Metroid, and onwards. They could technically put Prime 4 anywhere in the timeline, and it would probably fit. With some of the foreshadowing they've done, it's probably going to be after Federation Force and before Metroid 2, so I'll talk about every game up to and unfortunately including Federation Force. I'll put the logo on the bottom left of the video for the game being discussed just so it's easy for you to follow along with what game I'm talking about, and with all of that out of the way, let's dive into some Metroid lore. Not too much is known about Samus Aran's early origins. She lived with her parents on an Earth-colonized planet named K2L. A space pirate raid destroyed the colony, and Samus watched in horror as her parents were killed by their commander Ridley. Afterwards, she was found and taken in by a mysterious avian-like race known as the Chozo. They brought Samus to the planet Zebes, infused her with some Chozo DNA Captain America style, and trained her to be a super soldier warrior. Throughout the entirety of the playable Metroid series, it's not really explained what happened to the Chozo race. They have ruins throughout multiple planets, and they've influenced a ton of different things, Samus included, but they seem to have either gone extinct, nomadically roamed to another galaxy, or they're just simply invasive and shrouding themselves in a veil of secrecy on purpose, for some reason. After an undisclosed amount of time from Samus' childhood, Metroid Zero Mission begins. Samus heard that the space pirates have begun using planet Zebes as a base of operations, so she sets down to rid the planet of the vile menace. While navigating around her old planet, she finds and bests two space pirate commanders, the Colossal Kraid and the demon from her childhood, Ridley. Besting these two in battle opens up a pathway to get into the space pirates' fortress, Torian. As she descends into Torian, she discovers that the space pirates have been artificially creating the creatures that the series is named after, Metroids. Metroids are a bioweapon that was originally created by the Chozo. They attach to a creature and drain its energy out in order to feed and survive, and they'll typically go after whatever it can to feed, like some little jellyfish vampire. Metroid in the Chozo language means ultimate hunter. The only way Samus is able to defeat these ultimate hunters is by freezing them with her ice beam and blasting them with missiles. After eradicating all the Metroids in planet Zebes, Samus moves on to the brains behind the entire operation, an AI initially created by the Chozo who has since gone rogue, Mother Brain. As she was a Chozo-created being, Mother Brain is able to create Metroids, and the plan was to have the space pirates use these creatures to take over the universe, and she would rule with fear. After defeating Mother Brain, this triggers an explosion countdown on Zebes. Samus deftly escapes to her ship, and while she's trying to leave the planet, she gets shot down by space pirates back into the atmosphere. The crash renders her ship and power suit unusable, so she decides that she has to infiltrate the space pirate mothership. Being at such low power, she is required to stealthily avoid confrontation and make her way across into some Chozo ruins where she gets her power suit back. Afterwards, the tides turn on the space pirates. Samus finds and destroys a mechanical Ridley, and then prompts another detonation sequence. To escape, Samus commandeers a space pirate ship as the space pirate mothership gets blown up and she escapes. 3 years later, the events of Metroid Prime happens. Our hero notices a distress signal from a space pirate research facility named Orpheon and decides to investigate. She finds all sorts of experiments that space pirates were working on that escaped containment and turned on their captors. She then fights the parasite queen in the middle of the ship, and the death of the creature triggers an explosion countdown on the space frigate. While evacuating, Samus finds out that the demon from her past that she thought was slain has instead survived and is now reinforced with metal from their last encounter. Focusing on her life, she continues to head towards her ship. An electronic quick blast renders a majority of her equipment unusable, and when she reaches her ship, she notices Ridley flying towards the nearby planet, Talon 4, which she decides to pursue him to. Throughout her exploration of the once Chozo-inhabited Talon 4, Samus finds multiple research facilities that the space pirates were using. They imported Metroids from their schemes on Zebes, and they also seem to be working on infusing a lot of the wildlife, Metroids, and even themselves with an immensely powerful poison called Phazon. After defeating an Omega pirate, which is a space pirate pumped with an incredible amount of Phazon, it dissolves into a Phazon pool and, for lack of a better word, infects Samus with an upgrade to her power suit that makes her resistant to most forms of Phazon, known as the Phazon suit. Samus destroys each of the space pirate facilities on Talon 4, and in order to gain access into the planet core, she has to scour the planet for Chozo artifacts. Once assembled, Samus then has to fight a more optimized demon from her childhood, Meta Ridley. After an intense battle and with the help of some Chozo zapping, Ridley falls into the abyss, never to be seen again, for sure this time. Samus then descends into the impact crater to find a creature titularly known as Metroid Prime. Metroid Prime is a Metroid that has been feeding on Phazon since the poison first arrived on the planet. As the creature gets wounded, it retreats further and further into the planet's core. When its Phazon-plated exoskeleton is destroyed, the familiar jellyfish-like Metroid appearance reveals itself. Samus then overloads the membrane with Phazon in order to defeat it. In its final act of desperation, Metroid Prime grabs hold of Samus's power suit and yoinks the Phazon suit from her so that she's left with her gravity suit upgrade. When the final battle is over, this prompts an explosion countdown in the crater, can't have too many of those, and Samus escapes. After credits show that Metroid Prime coalesces with the yoinked Phazon suit in order to become Dark Samus. After Samus's escape from Talon 4, we head into the events of the first spin-off game, Metroid Prime Hunters for the DS. Prime Hunters has the most untapped and cool lore in the entire franchise, in my opinion. The Galactic Federation receives a cryptic message stating that the secret to ultimate power resides in the Olympic Cluster, which they relay over to Samus and urge her to investigate the Tetra Galaxy for more information. Samus quickly realizes that the Galactic Federation is far from the only ones to receive this message, and half a dozen other bounty hunters are interested in claiming this ultimate power for themselves. Candon is a lab experiment gone awry, and was created to become the ultimate warrior. He wants the ultimate power to prove that no one can rival his strength. Spire is the last remaining member of a silicon-based life form called the Diamonds. He wants the ultimate power to find the truth as to what happened to his race. Noxus is a member of the Vozon, a group which seeks out and destroys evil in the outer rim of the galaxy. He is seeking the ultimate power to ensure that it does not fall into evil's clutches, nor anyone who is unworthy of obtaining the power. Trace is a member of the Kryken Empire, which scours the universe for planets for his people to invade. He is searching for the ultimate power to bring honor for himself as well as supremacy for the Kryken Empire. Weevil is a space pirate who was mortally wounded in a previous battle with Samus. Space pirates were able to reconstruct his body and put it in a power suit where he can detach his upper body from his lower half. It's unclear if he wants the ultimate power for himself or for the space pirates. And the last bounty hunter is named Silex, who has a deep-seated hatred towards the Galactic Federation as Samus, though the game never really explains why. It does love mentioning that, though. Throughout her mission, Samus is able to see data shades that are hidden out of sight with her scan visor. Scanning these reveals secrets that the Olympic tribe had left about the ultimate power. Putting them in as good as order as I have, this is how things went down in their words. We were a peaceful people, but we defended our homeworld with a fierce determination. We continued research to improve our defense systems. Eventually, we became proficient in the art of war that we believed ourselves invincible. Without warning, our doom fell from the sky. From whence it came, we do not know. We deployed our deadliest weapons to fight the beast. To our horror, every weapon was somehow used against us by Goria. Our defenses were useless against Goria, as it swept through our empire in an orgy of annihilation. Goria devoured our people's life energy and grew powerful from it. Death swept across our worlds, and we despaired. We feared not only the extinction of our race, but the possibility that the evil would sweep the galaxy, annihilating all in its path. As the death toll rose, we crafted a plan. Rather than destroy Goria, we would contain it in an interdimensional prison. The Olympic Order directed surviving citizens to transfer their essences into the Soul Sphere. Our combined psychic energy is the energy that powers the sphere. We lured Goria into our trap. The Seal Sphere was deployed and the creature ensnared. With Goria bound, we had to act quickly. After trapping Goria in the Seal Sphere, we consigned it to a prison from which there could be no escape. We forced open an alternate dimension with the Olympic cannon, and the Ooblette was sent into it. The Infinity Void was sealed shut, never to be reopened. We finally contained Goria, but we paid a heavy price to do so. May our sacrifice bring peace to the galaxy. Reunite all 8 Octoliths in the cannon control room to open the doorway to Goria. The 8 Octoliths were being protected by 2 types of Olympic Guardians, and sure enough, we retrieve all 8 and fire it into the Olympic cannon to bring the Ooblette into our current dimension. Because we were stuck on activating the Void Hole, all of the other bounty hunters make their way there before our hero. When Samus arrives, they're already firing upon the holding cell, believing that the ultimate power is inside of it like a piñata. When the holding cell is destroyed, the ultimate power does come out like a piñata, but in the form of a Goria-like creature, which is a little surprise to us and Samus. Goria sucks the life out of the surprise hunter and begins to do battle with Samus using all of the hunter's weapons. Once Goria's life points are depleted, it decides to detonate the Ooblette, and before everyone can escape, all the hunters and Samus die in the explosion. Wait, what? That can't be right, there's still like 10 other Metroid games. Because of the 10 game plot armor, the astute scanner will realize that the Olympic tribe left a cryptic message for only the strongest of combatants, whom can defeat the true form of Goria. During the Goria fight, you'll need to hit seals around the room in a specific order, and after the first battle, you will unlock the true arena of Goria. There you'll find the Omega Cannon, and after a bit of hide and seek, you'll destroy Goria once and for all. Samus and all the bounty hunters escape the cell before it explodes this time, because of course it's always going to explode. And this concludes the cool but very fever dream-like different lore of Metroid Prime hunters. After our field trip in the Olympic cluster is done, we jump back into the main Prime games with Metroid Prime 2 Echoes. Poor Samus gets another request from the Galactic Federation that one of their squads has gone missing on a planet named Aether. Upon entering the atmosphere of Aether, her ship is surrounded by a dark fog and gets struck by lightning, which then drops it onto the planet's surface, rendering Samus unable to leave. When exploring the surface of Aether, she comes across the abandoned Galactic Federation base, with bodies with wound marks and fire everywhere. Some of these bodies even come back to life to fight Samus. She also discovers a ghostly visage of herself for the first time that disappears into a purple portal. Following the visage into the portal causes her to get ambushed by dark creatures, and she miraculously escapes through a shrinking light portal. Though she survives, the shadowy assailants stole pieces of her power suit, so she has to start with her basic equipment again. Continuing on, she finds the remnants of the Galactic Federation's final stand, and some data logs showed that they were getting assaulted by these same shadowy fiends, which ultimately led to their demise. Exploring a little further provides an elevator to bring Samus up to an area called the Temple Grounds. Inside the Temple Grounds, Samus is finally able to meet a living, non-hostile, friendly face for once, named Umos. Umos decides to shed a little light on what's happening in Aether. Umos explains that there are currently 2 versions of Aether, the normal, light version of the planet, and a dark version that came to exist when they were hit by a comet-like impact similar to Talon 4 and with the Olympic tribe, which became inhabited by shadowy fiends known as the Ing. Umos shares the dire news about the 2 worlds having to fight over a shared existence. Umos and the rest of the Luminoth race are losing ground to the Ing, as the Ing are stealing energy transfer modules from the light world and bringing it to their dark world. They claim that if the Ing are successful in their efforts, then dark ether will consume light ether. The Ing will become more powerful and threaten the rest of the universe, which sounds very similar to the Kraken race. Samus, being the hero that she is, agrees to help Umos to use portals to travel the dark ether, get the energy transfer modules back to light ether so they can help destroy dark ether. Her ship doesn't work anyway, so I assume it's a pretty easy choice for her, regardless. A notable feature about the Ing is that they are capable of possession. So similar to the Galactic Federation grunts, they will frequently possess and corrupt beings from light ether. As mentioned before, they also steal Samus's gear, and there's a lot of fights with the Ing that have a piece of Samus's old equipment, which augments that ability on the Ing, and honestly are some of the most annoying boss fights to fight ever. Seriously, I gotta say, the boss fights in this game are trash. But after defeating these guardians that have Samus's suit upgrades, you get them back and can use them in your playthrough. Being inside Dark Ether does drain Samus of her energy, and acquiring the Dark Suit will reduce the damage taken in Dark Ether, and getting the Light Suit at the end of the game completely negates any damage taken. While investigating around Ether, these space pirates are up to their usual mad scientist schemes, but don't really do too much noteworthy. And this is the first time Samus is able to confront her counterpart from Metroid Prime 1, which funnily is known as Dark Samus. You know, Ether, Samus, Dark Samus. Samus. Anyway, Samus starts blasting, and after recovering the 3 energy transfer modules, she is told that 1 more remains, and she needs 9 keys to ascend to the area where the King of the Ings resides, named Emperor Ing. Samus hops in, fights yet another frustrating Metroid Prime to fight against Emperor Ing, and after dealing the final blow, this causes Dark Ether to start ripple and disintegrate with a countdown timer similar to a detonation sequence, because we need those. As she's about to leave Dark Ether for good, she gets blocked by Dark Samus, and just like in Metroid Prime 1, you damage it by overloading it with Phazon. Dark Samus gets defeated, retreats, and the Ing now have regrouped to try to take Samus with them to perish with their dark planet. She gets out, of course, and Dark Ether collapses, assumedly gone forever. With her ship repaired, she leaves Ether and leaves it in care of the Luminoth race. Which concludes the events of Metroid Prime 2. Half a year goes by and Metroid Prime 3 Corruption begins, and this is the last of the mainline Prime series. The Galactic Federation, once again, asks for the help of Samus on board their flagship Olympus. Once there, she is greeted by 3 other bounty hunters, Gore, an expert in machines, Rundus, an ice master, and Gandreda, a shape-shifting subterfuger. They are briefed that the Aurora units, which look similar to Mother Brain funnily enough, were targeted by space pirate hacking through a virus 7 days prior. These beings host the Galactic Federation's network, and because of the virus, they had to bring their entire network offline. Aurora Unit 242 aboard the flagship Olympus was already cured, but they'd like Samus and the other hunters to go to Aurora units around the galaxy and give the vaccine to them in order to block space pirate interference. The Hunter Squadron is also informed that a different flagship was ambushed by space pirates who knocked down its Aurora unit and have ship-napped it somewhere else in the galaxy. During this briefing, space pirates crash the party and attempt to take out the Olympus as well. Samus and the other hunters repel the pirates from this attack. From this, they notice that the nearby planet Norion is also getting attacked. The 4 bounty hunters' task is to try to get the planetary defense system online to defend the planet from an oncoming comet impact. Sound familiar? With the combined effort of Gore's prowess with machines, Rundus being Frozone from The Incredibles and just an all-around badass, Gandreda's shape-shifting covert skills, and Samus's Samusness, they activate the 3 defenses and are attacked by our good old pal, the more optimized, metal-reinforced demon from Samus's childhood, Meta Ridley, who fights her down an energy shaft. Once the battle with Meta Ridley is over, Samus gets caught by Rundus and they head towards a terminal tower. Nemesis number 2 rears their poison-filled head this time. Dark Samus shows up to stop us from fully activating the defenses, wiping out all 4 hunters. Before losing consciousness, Samus is able to get the defense online to blast the comet out of the sky. The Chozo warrior wakes up and we find that she's been in a coma for about a month in the care of the Galactic Federation. A result of the battle with Dark Samus has caused the 4 bounty hunters to be infected with Phazon. The Galactic Federation briefs Samus on an augment that they created to help turn the Phazon into a positive feature by enhancing our weapon fire, putting us into what they call hyper mode. Sparing no downtime, we learned that 2 weeks ago the other 3 hunters have been dispatched to investigate other planets which have actually had these comets struck down on them recently, which we now find out are called Leviathan seeds. And on top of that, the Galactic Federation lost contact with each hunter a week ago. Surely nothing bad is going to happen there. In addition to Norion, there are 3 other planets to explore. Rundus was sent to the fiery planet Brio, Gore was sent over to Skytown, which is a floating Chozo city on the planet Elysia, and Gandreda went undercover to the space pirate homeworld. Each of these planets have a shield around the Leviathan Seed crater, and Samus needs to employ various methods like dropping satellites on it to break it or blowing it open with her ship missiles. Probably the least surprising thing in any lore thing that we've talked about so far is that the 3 other hunters have been corrupted by Phazon, and they try to stop Samus from getting to the Seed Core. Inside the Seed Core, there is a guardian protecting the Phazon itself. They are 2 jobber bosses, which have really cool boss fights, but ultimately aren't really a big part of the lore. The 3rd guardian for the Space Pirate homeworld is a pretty big part of the lore, and he might sound familiar. He is our good old pal, and this time he has been even more efficiently optimized. He has been metal reinforced for some time, and now has been pumped with poisonous Phazon. He is the demon from Samus's childhood, and it's Omega Ridley, back with a second chance to carve Samus in 2 after his defeat in Norion. Once each of these guardians are defeated, Samus has to absorb the seed's phazon in order to stop it from spreading throughout the planet, and she becomes more corrupted herself as a result. Remains of an old Galactic Federation ship was spotted throughout the adventure, and through investigative means Samus was able to find out that space pirates kidnapped an Aurora unit inside of the ship and left in a wormhole. On the space pirate homeworld access onto a Leviathan battleship with the wormhole coordinates, she is able to open up a path for the Galactic Federation and herself to get into Phase, the planet which Phazon happens to originate. When on the surface of Phase, Samus has too much corruption to try and withstand, so she locks herself in permanent hyper mode for the duration of the visit. Phase is home to all kinds of horrors beyond our comprehension, like this freak of a specimen, and it actually stunned me IRL that it took me a few seconds to recover. As she gets into the planet core, she finds Dark Samus with the stolen Aurora unit that has been embedded into the planet's core. We then do battle against Dark Samus and the mother brain-like Aurora unit, take care of those guys, and if you guess this would cause a planetary-wide explosion, then treat yourself to something nice, because that's exactly what happened. After defeating the two baddies, the phazon inside of her gets destroyed, and she gains full control of her body and attempts an escape. All of the phazon originates on the Phase home planet, so as far as we are aware, when this planet explodes, this closes the chapter of the trilogy related to the being known as Metroid Prime and the corrupting poison that is phazon, as far as we know. The Galactic Federation make their way out of a wormhole and recount a death toll of probably millions dead. They aren't sure where the true hero is, but she does a flyby, does a super cool thumbs up, and sends them an incredibly powerful mission complete. Samus then flies off to Skytown to mourn the loss of her companions, and then flies off into space. If you manage to get 100% items complete, you also get to see a very ominous ship for a few seconds. Now who could that be? Somewhere along the way, the Galactic Federation must have realized that they kind of suck at everything, and they can't rely on the greatest bounty hunter in the galaxy for the smallest of things. They begin a project known as Operation Golem, and this begins the story of the second spin-off game, Metroid Prime Federation Force. These golems were inspired by Samus's power suit, and like any cheap imitation, they run at maybe 10% of the power. They're slow, they can't morph, and they need the use of 3DS cards for any meaningful power-up, which destroy if they run out of power. This is the first and only Metroid game in which you're not playing as Samus Aran, and instead you're playing as a Marine that has no name at all. Okay, technically it is a squadron of Marines that have no name at all, but I played solo because I wouldn't force this game on any of my friends, so my brain has been ingrained with a Galactic Federation Doom guy that moves at a speed of 20 feet an hour. If you think this means that the Galactic Federation has gotten any competence and no longer needs to rely on Samus, then I'm sorry for giving you any sort of confidence in the Federation. What usually happens in a mission is that we are deployed to one of 3 planets to do random jobber testing for our golem suit, picking up items, escort missions, and we find space pirates up to their usual mad scientist schemes of experimenting on wildlife and developing technology way superior to that of the Galactic Federation. Once we find that the space pirates are up to no good, the Federation decides that we're having too much fun, and instead of giving us a chance to save the day, they summon Samus to do that job for us. There is one mission where you protect a drill that's drilling into a space pirate base, and you drop a bomb on them, which is pretty insane in its own right, but for the most part, you're doing missions and getting owned or owning groups of space pirates. For the last mission of the game, you find that the culmination of the space pirates' efforts results in a space pirate ship of incredible power known as the Doom Eye. Your job is to sneak past their force field that repels every gun blast directed at it, enter the ship and deactivate the force field completely, then get out safely. When you get to the middle of the ship, you see that Samus Aran has been imprisoned by the space pirates, and they use an amplification beam on her to turn her into her morph ball, and she just kind of rolls around as a boss fight. Once you defeat the Samus Aran, and yes, this is the real Samus Aran, she comes to her senses and then a bunch of rocks fall on her. Your dispatcher doesn't seem to care at all, and he wants you to focus on your mission. Not like she would be a great help anyway or anything. But when you get to the middle of the ship, you see Master Brain, clever name guys, and when you destroy it, this causes the Doom Eye to be vulnerable, and so the Galactic Federation wastes no time and starts blasting it. You still need to make it out before the ship gets blown up. You don't, and when you start getting lost to space, even though we left her for dead, guess who doesn't do the same to us? We get saved by Samus, Aran, and we live. Woo. There isn't much in terms of lore outside of one particular mission where you find out that space pirates have been working to hatch Metroids from their eggs. If you successfully evacuate the facility with one of the eggs intact, there is a bonus scene that appears at the end of the game, looking through the visor of an unknown assailant who avoids a group of Galactic Federation Marines and then breaks into a restricted room housing the Metroid egg we stole. They press a button on their suit to forcibly hatch the Metroid from the egg, and the camera pans out to show the shoulder of Silex. And now we are all caught up. There are a few things I want to specifically point out and kind of speculate before this video ends. Phazon has canonically vanished, and the planet Phase has been completely destroyed. Unless they retcon it, there should be no Phazon in the game, as it's supposed to be completely and totally wiped out. When we learn about the Leviathan seeds in Prime 3, that's supposed to answer the question on what happened in Talon 4. What is extra interesting about this is both the Olympic Cluster in Metroid Prime Hunters and Ether in Metroid Prime 2 were also impacted by craters, with the Ing and Gori being pulled in respectively, and it doesn't seem like Phazon takes as much of a forefront in here. It doesn't exist at all in Metroid Prime Hunters, but it is a little bit in Ether with the Ing. Specifically in terms of Metroids, they're highly adaptable, and Mother Brain creates them in Zero Mission, which these Metroids were then transmitted over to Talon 4 in Metroid Prime 1, where experiments were done on them to make fission Metroids, where they kind of split off into multiple Metroids. They do not show up in Prime Hunters, but in Prime 2, they do show up on Planet Ether, and they have more of like a hardened, dark state, as if they're possessed by the Ing. In Prime 3, they show up only on Planet Phase and are named Phazon Metroids, and this could be due to Dark Samus originally being a Metroid itself. The Metroids that show up in Federation Force are called Talvanian Metroids, after the planet's name. Not much is known about how the space pirates found and hatched these eggs at all. Could be that they got information on Mother Brain on how to hatch these eggs, or maybe they're just lucky and the eggs hatched right when they needed to. Adding on to this, Silex also has a way to forcibly hatch these Metroids, as seen on the post-credits of Federation Force. It does seem like Silex has a way to work with Metroid species. What I think is kind of crazy is that Chozo beings are originally the only ones who could create and influence Metroids. And because Silex is such a deep, dark, mysterious past, there is very much a possibility that he is more closely related to Samus and the Chozo than we think. And I think that's pretty cool, and I'm excited to know a lot more about Silex. I'm cautiously optimistic about Metroid Prime 4. For a game to have so much hype around it for so long, it's hard not to have thoughts about it completely flubbing out though. I'm also hoping that there's continuation on some of the stuff that has already been set up. I feel that Metroid proper does a really good job of tying things in from previous games, but the Prime series doesn't really have that same track record. In fact, them revealing that Silas is in Prime 4 is the biggest tie-in that the Prime series has ever had, outside of his 2 post-credit bonus scenes that are in this video. I also hope that they tie in stuff so you can be like, wowee, Typic's video on this is really cool, and I knew everything they were talking about when Ridley came in and decided to Ridley all over the place. Anyway, I just wanted to say thanks for checking out my video. I super appreciate it. I am on Twitch, Blue Sky, and Twitter under the name Typic, and I will see you in the next mission, Marines. Bounty Hunters.